Now you had an interview, and I was just posting it again with Stephen A. Schwartz, the world-renowned remote viewer. And in the interview, I was really interested to listen to it again. He asked, and you answered, very well, but within that short framework, the questions could be expanded on. Two of his questions that he said he did not know the answer to are what is consciousness and what is information? Could you expand on those a little bit and
Sure.
offer a little more
Yeah.
rounded information on that?
Well, what is consciousness is simple. Consciousness is awareness with a choice. That's just a very simple definition. Now, it's got a lot of logical consequences to those words, just a few words, awareness with a choice. But what is awareness? Awareness, it means that you are aware of something. You're aware of this or aware of that. And basically what that means is information. What you're aware of is information. What am I aware of right now? Well, I'm aware that I'm sitting in front of a computer monitor and it's got my picture and your picture and we're talking to each other, and that's what I'm aware of. But all of that is gathered by my senses. My sight gets, photons come from the screen, they go to my eye, they go to my retina, they get turned into nerve pulses, and I interpret them as this reality. So that's kind of the physical viewpoint. Okay, that's the physical viewpoint. Now, if you go up to the bigger picture, the bigger picture is that there's this virtual reality. And the character I'm playing is Tom Campbell. The character you're playing is Donna Vinny, and we have both come to sit down and have this talk and answer people's questions. And we're both pieces of consciousness. We're both free will awareness units who have been working with these avatars for over 70 years. So anyhow, so that's another way, to look at what's going on. If you look at an even higher picture now, you step it up one more, then basically we're pieces of a larger consciousness system that has created these subsets of itself so that they can interact with free will to create more possibilities of what can happen, what it can grow into. And that's part of its evolution. So awareness is about information. What you're aware of is information. Now, it's also interpretation, your interpretation of the information. Okay, so that's what creates your reality, is your interpretation of the information you get. Here we have 5 senses. With our intuitive side, we have a lot more. We're not limited to just the information we get through our 5 senses. We have all sorts of other kinds of information available to us on the intuitive channel. You see, so consciousness is an information system. It gets information, it interprets that information, and that interpretation is what it calls reality. So that's basically the idea of what is consciousness. So the other thing I'd have to say about consciousness is that consciousness has time inherent in its definition, because if it has a choice, then there's always a before and after. Before the choice, after the choice. So you have to have time or you can't have choice. To be able to make a choice, there has to be time. Before the choice, after the choice. No time, no choice. Now, that means if you have choice, then it has to be a free will choice, because that's the only kind of choices there are. The opposite of free will is determinism. And in determinism, everything's determined. There are no choices. Everything's done already. There's nothing to do. There's no growth. There's no change. There's no evolution. There's just everything that is, and it stays that way forever, period. So it's the null set. There's nothing happening there. It's dead. It's a dead thing. There's no growth, because growth requires time. You grow up. Now you were less grown up. Now you're more grown up. You see? So you need time. And if you're going to make a choice, the only choices there are is free will choices. So when I say that consciousness is awareness with a choice, I've also defined that part of it is time, part of it is free will. They just come in with the choice. Okay. Information itself, I've used information a whole lot here in the definition of consciousness, but what is information? Okay. Think of an information system with bits, and a bit is just a name for the smallest piece of information. Okay, so however this information system works, we can go down to its smallest unit of information, and we'll just give that the name a bit. Okay, now if all the bits are random, then there is no information. If you order some bits, in other words, put the bits in a particular way, make it unique. They're not random. They're in this particular way. You've created information. Those bits now they could represent something. They could stand for something. They could be the number 6. They could be a metaphor for something. You've created information. So information is developed by ordering bits to have meaning, some sort of meaning. That's how information works. Bits with meaning. Now, consciousness can have information. Consciousness can deal with information. It takes in information. It then can assess that information, can make choices, and then it can output information. Okay, it's an information system. Information can only exist in a consciousness. You can't put information in a jar. Information is non-physical. Okay. Now, the information is the content, the meaning. Remember, we took all those random bits and we made some order out of it, built a little pile of bits and said, okay, that little pile of bits, we'll call that a tree, and that'll be what the name for that little pile of bits is. We'll make up a name for it. And now we could make up another tree, and then we could count. We could say, oh, look, 1 tree, 2 trees. 1 + 1 = 2. And then we start understanding mathematics. So it grows. You see, it evolves. The information is not, let's say, in a book. Okay, we don't have a book. A book is full of information. Well, we say that, but that's a real loose form of the word. We're not being too specific. We should say a book is full of data. Okay, because data can be transmitted, it can be received, it can be transmitted. Okay, that's data. Information is not the ink or the paper that make up the book. The ink and the paper are the media. And the media can be ordered in such a way that they represent data. Okay, so the book is full of data that have been incorporated into a media, and they are physical. The ink takes up space. The book has mass. You can put them in a jar. You can measure them. But the meaning of those bits, that requires a consciousness. So look at that, and because of its experience, it can say, oh, yeah, that's the bump I made for a tree. Oh, look, there's 10 of them. There's 10 trees. What does that mean? Well, 10 trees by itself might not mean much, but you see, we could keep going on and build up a village and build up an environment. And we could do all kinds of things with that where they all had meaning. All these things that we're doing would have their meaning. So the meaning, the significance, the content can only be understood by a consciousness. It can't be understood by the paper in the book, can't be understood by the ink in the book, can't be understood by even the cover of the book, right? You actually have to go in and look at the data and convert it into information in a mind, in a consciousness. So information is really different than data. So let's say, how do we deal with things? Well, I get data when you send me a book, or I get data when light goes off the screen and goes into my eyeball. I get data when I see lights over here and a clock on the wall and drapes across the window. That's data. Okay, now I take that data and I turn it into, oh, this is my studio. Okay, now that's a consciousness doing that. So the data is transmittable. So, okay, I get that data and I look at it and I say, okay, I recognize all that data. And altogether, that's my studio where I talk and do interviews. Now, I'd like to explain. I'd like to describe to somebody else what my studio looks like and what I do there. So, what do I have to do? I have to take that information that understands that this is my studio, and I have to convert it into data. And that data may come out as words, little acoustic vibrations that go into somebody's ear and turn into neural activity in the sound portion of the brain. I have to create into data. And then I send that data to somebody, and they get the data, and then they interpret it. And they look at it and they say, well, it looks like a room, and it's got a curtain on the window, and there's a clock up there, and so on. And they may say, gee, it looks like it's a good bedroom. So they look at it and say, oh, I interpret that to be a bedroom because I didn't put the data in about my computer and the screen and all of that stuff I left out. You see, I didn't bother with that. So they look at it and they think it's something else. They think, well, it looks like a bedroom to me. You know? Well, of course, it was a bedroom that was converted into a studio. So the thing is, that's the way we communicate. And it's interesting to know that when you get data, you have to interpret it. And that data is not necessarily a perfect representation of what was intended by the consciousness. Because when I take my knowledge and I turn it into data so that I can share it, it's not a perfect thing. But language isn't perfect. There's a lot of things that language just has a hard time describing. There's a lot of emotions and a lot of feelings and a lot of things that it's just hard to put into language. So you do your best you can to put it into data, but that's not, you don't get 100% of it. Maybe you get a 98%, maybe you capture half of it. I didn't capture all of it when I described my room because I left the computer out. So you don't always get a full picture. So the other person takes data that has inherent errors in it. I shouldn't say errors, maybe I should say omissions in it. And I then interpret it. And when I interpret it, that means my consciousness comes to some kind of conclusions what it is. And I say, oh, it's a bedroom. Okay, that must be a bedroom in his house someplace. I wonder who sleeps in there. And then I want to tell somebody else about it. So then I take what I've got and I put it into data so that I can send to somebody else. So I send them data, voice, picture, whatever, and they get that data and they have to interpret it. You see how that goes on? So there's errors everywhere. The data you get comes with errors, comes with omissions, comes with less than the whole truth. You take it and you interpret it based on your history, on your fear, on your beliefs, on your love, all those experiences you've had. You interpret that data based on in terms of your experience base. And if your experience base has only been things physical, then you interpret that data into things physical. Oh, curtains, clocks, ceilings. I'm familiar with that stuff. I know what that is. I got a pattern match for that. So I interpret it. But if it's not similar, if you don't have that in your experience base, you don't know how to interpret it. You may interpret it very strangely. You might say, oh, there's something wrong. I don't know what it is, but, I seem to be surrounded in something, but I have no idea what. I'm trapped.
Did that
You know,
happen to you when you viewed things in other realities that were not like here?
sure, Sure.
How did
You
you
can't help
deal with
that.
that?
The best you can. You come up with the best pattern match you can, and that's what you go with. It may or may not be correct, but with experience, you get better. The more experience you have, then the better your experience database, the more likely is you can find a decent pattern match. But when you run into things that are just not at all like you've ever experienced, you guess. You say, well, that was sort of like this. So then that's what it is in your mind. So that's in your mind, that's what the reality was. It was like this. Might not have been like that at all because your database may be lacking in trying to understand that. It may be something else entirely. But in your reality, it's that because that's your closest approach to it. And if you don't have any information on it at all, you won't be able to describe it. You'll say, well, I get a feeling, but it's all amorphous. I can't describe it. I can't tell you what it was like. It just was a feeling. And I can't put it into any other words other than that. It wasn't a particularly good or bad or this kind of or that kind of feeling. It was just a feeling that's undescribable. And that's the best you can do. And
Well,
I got
this,
this kind of feeling from it, or this kind of information from it, or whatever, but I don't really know what it is. So what we tend to do is we make things up that suit. So let's say it was a communication. Well, we make it look kind of humanoid because that's what we communicate with. So, okay, I was in there and I was talking to some entity. And what did the entity look like? Oh, sort of like us. Had a head, had a body, it was like that. Oh, well, what was his face like? Well, I don't know. It had a robe on and a hood over his face. So, we make stuff up because we're not used to conversing and communicating with rocks or three-headed chickens or trees or these other things. So the only thing we can put in there is something that would suit
mm,
us as something that
mhm,
would be communicating with us.
mhm.
So that's why people in the non-physical all wear robes, because that's easier for us to do than it is, oh, let's see, it was a paisley tie that was green with yellow swirls, and all of that is just unnecessary stuff. So we simplify. Oh, wearing a robe, wearing a long, just kind of white dress that just kind of float everywhere, but it's always kind of a general, non-detailed sort of thing we do.
Well, this is interesting because the next question is related to what you're saying now. So I will ask it. Um, you said in one of your videos that two people could have the same experience, but because of interpretation, have a totally different effect. Would you speak to him about this and have him further explain? And let me know what you mean by that. And I think you've done that somewhat, but
Mm-hmm.
can you, if you can
Yeah,
expand on it?
sure. You know, our reality, what we see as the reality, we think of the reality like there's just one. The reality is how we interpret the data we receive. Okay, we get data, we can send data, but information is in the mind of a consciousness. We can't send information. We can't send meaning and content and significance. They have to get that on their own. But we can send data. So if you have a different interpretation, you have a different experience and you live in a different reality. And we see that all the time. I think the easiest description of or example of that is you get 5 people standing on a street corner and there's an accident. All 5 of them standing in the same place, so they all see the same view from the same angle, and they were all looking right at the spot where the accident happened, and they'll give 5 different accident reports. They just won't say the same things. There's somebody, let's say one of the drivers was a young boy. There's somebody who really has a thing about young boys being dangerous drivers. And because he's a young boy, they'll say, well, he was speeding, when he really wasn't. But they will just interpret it that way because they believe that young boys tend to speed. So they'll assume that that's what happened. So that will be their reality. So they will say it. Yes, I saw him. He was speeding. And somebody else who doesn't have that fear or that attitude will look at it and say, was he speeding? No, He wasn't speeding. He was doing about what all the other cars do, you see. So now the police have to deal with this, and they get all this conflicting stuff that they have to sort through. But everybody sees it differently. They all have the same experience because they all watched the two cars from the same angle at the same time do exactly what those two cars did. So that's the experience. All of them experienced that, yet they will report 5 different things because they live in 5 different realities, because their interpretation of what happened has to do with their beliefs, their fears, the things they've had in their past experience, their knowledge base, their ignorance. All of those things will color what they say. Okay, now if you have something extremely simple, then most people will say pretty much the same thing. But if you have something that's more complicated, then the various descriptions from the different people start to get further and further apart. If it was a crash of 6 cars that all came together, somebody bumped somebody who swerved, who hit somebody else, who did this and that, and you had a whole lot of things going on, then your reports would be all over the place. The reports would be very different. If you just have one car that slammed on its brakes and slid to a stop, then your reports are all going to be about the same because that's just a simple thing. So it depends on what you're looking at and the complexity of it and the meaning behind it and how concrete it is or how abstract it is. All these things matter to how we turn it into our reality. Now, you can take another example. If you took somebody who had always lived in a big city, say New York, let's say they were 30 years old, had lived in New York all their life, take somebody else out of the Amazon jungle who'd never been in a city in their life, and you put them in a particular environment. They would see different things. They would interpret different things. You walk into a room and maybe there'd be a fancy table there. And maybe the guy from the jungle would think, oh, firewood, great. He'd see it as wood. He may not ever seen something like a table. If they only eat from the ground, say bowls and things they eat in the ground or put in their lap, he might not know what it's for. Whereas the other person from New York, of course, he'd had tables since he was very, very small, and he'd know exactly what it was. And if there was a purple frog with a yellow stripe that was sitting over there in the bushes, the guy from New York probably wouldn't even notice it because frogs aren't part of his life. And if he did notice it, he may go over and want to pick it up. But the guy from the jungle would say, no, that's a poisonous frog. You can't pick that up unless you pick it up by his back feet. If you can pick it up by his back feet, you'll be fine. You see, so they know different things about different things. They're both bright, they're both intelligent, they both have a very different set of experiences, and they are going to see the world differently. The guy from the jungle will look out the window and see all the traffic in New York City and won't have a clue what that's about. And it'll surprise him tremendously when he sees that there's people inside those metal things, whereas the guy from New York, And the same thing, if the guy from New York walks out in the jungle and sees a big python or this or that, or has to find some way to eat, he'd be clueless. He'd have no idea what to do. He'd probably die in a day because he wouldn't know what was dangerous from what wasn't. So as much as your background and your culture is the same as other people, you tend to see things like they do. But when your background and your culture is very different, you see things very differently. So for most people who are similar to each other, they kind of feel like there is just a reality and we both see the same things. For people who are very dissimilar, come from very dissimilar cultures, say, they don't see the same reality at all. Maybe in one person who's a materialist, all the stuff is very important. And maybe another person who's very right-brained, the stuff isn't important at all. But the feelings and the attitudes and the empathy and the things they connect to. It's very important, you see. And these are people may both grew up in the same town. They just look at the world in different ways. So yes, we create our own reality. Everybody lives in a reality of their own making based on their own experience base. And we only think it's the same reality everybody else sees because that's a belief of ours. And because the people we know and associate with pretty much come from a similar reality. So we all kind of have the same ideas and feelings. We kind of know what each other's thinking and feeling. And we think the reality is the same for everyone. There is just a reality, and we just live in it. But that's not true.
I think
Reality is
we
created, in consciousness.
I think we have to acknowledge that a little more, and but also there is a collective reality, whereas you can have your own reality and acknowledge another's, and as long as there's no harm inflicted on, I think that's like the main thing. There's no harm inflicted on another. If your reality is such that you need to harm someone for not having a reality similar to yours, that's where the collective doesn't work. How would you how would you
Well,
frame that?
you see, we have a lot of trouble in our culture right now with, you know, there's like 30% of the people live in one reality and another 30% live in a different reality and a third 30% live in some mixture of reality between the two. We have a lot of different realities going on because we've had a lot of information and misinformation. And whether you believe that a certain piece of data is true or false will make a difference on the things you believe, and the things you believe make a difference in how you interpret things. So yes, that is natural enough, and we need to let other people be for the most part. But you have a problem when people feel so what they feel so certain that their reality is the only reality that could possibly be true, and that they feel, and that by itself is not a problem, but then they feel that they need to change other people's realities to be like theirs. Then that creates a problem. Now, if we can live peacefully with other people and other realities, then fine. Let's just say that's just diversity, and we can have a diversity of opinions, and that's okay as long as nobody's trying to shove their opinions down anybody else's throat. As well as we just kind of agree that we disagree on what reality really is. But we can still be friends for the most part. But now some things may be incompatible. Maybe you're on an island and you're not a cannibal, but there's somebody else on the island that is a cannibal. And you just can't come to an agreement because, you have to insist that that cannibal not act on his urge to have you for dinner. So now this is a difference. Well, then I guess that is a different sort of thing. But most differences are not irreconcilable. Most differences don't really matter that much.
Well, in
There's
your
lots of
theory,
room for people to do their own thing in their own way, in their own time. And you say the people who are wrong but think they're right, well, they'll find out eventually, or not. Maybe next lifetime, they'll find out eventually. The people who are right but think they're wrong, or wrong or think they're right, it all works out in the end. People are, so we need to not be believers. See, we get trapped in beliefs. We say, well, this is my reality and this is how the world is. The world works this way. And anybody else that disagrees with me is stupid. See, that everybody else is stupid is a negative idea, not a positive idea. That doesn't help. And even worse, all those stupid people, I need to fix them. I need to change them. It's my job. My mission in life is to enlighten these people who are stupid. that can be a real problem, particularly if the other person you're calling stupid thinks you're stupid because he thinks you're all wrong, you see. And then what we have is fighting, and then we have wars, and then we have dysfunction, and all of that does not lead to progress. You don't solve problems by fighting. There's very, very few circumstances where fighting is the best answer. There are a few circumstances where that is a necessary answer, but there are very, very few circumstances that are like that. For the most part, you need to allow other people to be however they are, and you need to let them think however they think, and you need to let them learn in their own way, in their own time. You can't force them to agree with you or to see it your way. And everybody thinks that their way is the right way. All 8 billion of us, every one of those 8 billion humans that live on this planet thinks that they know what is right and what everybody else should be doing or should not be doing. Everybody thinks that what the conclusions they've come to are the right ones. So when you have a world like that, you have to let other people be, or you're going to be constantly fighting with each other, which is pretty much what we see in the world. We see constant struggle, constant bickering, constant arguing, constant fussing and fuming, but none of that leads to anywhere valuable. That doesn't take you to a better place. That makes everyone miserable, drags everyone down, and nobody learns anything from it. But if you can be patient with other people and let them be, let them have their way, and if they disagree with you, well, let them learn on their own. You're not their teacher. You don't have to teach them a better way of seeing things. So that's kind of the way that we should approach this idea that we all live in our own independent reality frames, some more like others, some less like others, but we should be kind to people who are different than us. We humans have this thing about being fearful of things that are different than us. And we get that. I call it a herd mentality because herds are that way. You know, if in a herd, one horse, suddenly the lead horse gets up and runs someplace, everybody gets up and runs with him. Or if one thing gets frightened, you know, if one antelope squeals like it's afraid, all the antelopes take off. They run, even if they have no idea what's going on. And you'll find them with a lot of species. If there's a cow born and the cow has purple and green spots instead of black and white spots, all the other cows won't talk to them, shun them, push them away because they're different. That was learned in and it's part of our instincts that you have to be wary of things that are different, things you're not used to. I remember there was a movie about the Crudes, right? It was a film, and the Crudes were Neanderthals, and their idea was if it's different, if it's new, leave it alone. It's dangerous. What's that? I don't know. Well, let's go find out. No, it's dangerous because we don't know. So everything that was new was dangerous to them. And then there was, of course, a human there that wasn't a Neanderthal, and he liked new things and liked to figure them out and that kind of stuff. So it was just this funny comedy cartoon thing. But we learned this idea that things that are different, things that don't look right, things that don't fit, it's not what we're used to seeing, that they could be dangerous. So when we see something that's different than us, it spawns a little bit of fear. What is that? Does it bite? Is it catching? Will it hurt me? That kind of thing. So we don't like things being different. We like things that are just like us. And we don't like people so much that are different. And we form cliques of people who are like us. And we don't like the people who aren't in our clique because they're not us and they're not as good as us. So we have that tendency as a human being, those kind of herd instincts, although humans don't run in herds, but it's the same sort of thing. And we tend to overdo it. So people that are a different race than us, well, we don't feel as comfortable around them because they're different. You know, their eyes aren't like us. Well, you know, they're different. Their hair color's different. Their hair is different. You know, well, they frighten us because we don't know what they might do. Well, of course, it's silly. You know, we're way past that as far as the fear and the dangers go. But we don't live in that kind of dangerous space anymore. But we still walk around with this fear of things that are different bother us. You know, and my dogs are the same way. You know, I remember I had 2 golden retrievers, and one day a box blew into my backyard. And it was a box that was maybe, you know, a foot and a half on one side and maybe a foot on the other side and maybe 2 feet on the other side. You know, it's just a regular, you know, kind of a biggish box, but not too huge. It was just sitting in the backyard. And my golden retrievers got up and they looked at that box and, you know, they start growling at that box. And then they barked at it. And that box, of course, it just sat there, you know, it didn't do anything. So they'd get a little more courage, and they'd go out and they'd get about, you know, 100 feet away from it, and they'd, you know, and they'd bark at it. They'd watch it, and they'd walk to this side and walk to that side. And it took them probably half an hour before they got enough courage to go right up to the box and sniff it. And then you know, it was okay then. But this is just typical. That box didn't belong there. You know, it wasn't a part of their environment. They'd been in that yard for years, and that yard doesn't have a box in it. And when suddenly it did, it was scary because it was new. And their instinct said that things that aren't supposed to be like that, aren't supposed to be there, are scary. So that's the same sort of thing that we humans have, and it's just part of our instincts that go way back. And it's very unfortunate because learning and growth and evolving have to do with embracing new things, embracing new ideas, you know, embracing diversity. That's how we grow up. And we have this innate sense that we want to hang out with people just like us. And we don't really trust the people who aren't just like, we don't even trust people that look like us, but we trust the people who don't look like us even more. So that is a problem. And it's the same sort of thing, you know, the different people from different cultures and different spaces have different realities. They see things differently, different languages, and different attitudes toward what's important and what's not. You know, you go down to Latin America and the people might get right up in your face when they talk to you because their space, you know, that's their private space, isn't that big. Their space is just right here in front of their nose. But our space is out here. And one of those people come up and get right in your face and talk to you, it makes you feel uncomfortable because it's not what you're used to. And they think that you're being real standoffish because you're hanging way back and, you know, you won't come up to where they are. So, you know, there's just differences that we don't like, and we need to embrace all those differences and enjoy them and try to understand them,
Is
but
that
not fear
diversity?
them.
Yeah, is that diversity the learning part of this reality? Now, in your theory, lowering entropy is the goal. Cooperation and caring about others is the ideal to get along, to evolve further. We have the
Mhm,
possibility of evolving further as a collective, as collective
mhm.
consciousness. And those things, would you say, were created in order to challenge us or test us for understanding these kinds of things?
Yeah, I would, but it's not so much that they were created just for that. It's not that the things are created to challenge us, but we just naturally challenge each other because we're just naturally different because we grow up in different environments. You know, some people out of the jungle, some people out of the city, and we just naturally challenge each other, and that's good. And there's some people that know a whole lot about nuclear physics and don't know anything at all about basket weaving. And there's people who know a whole lot about basket weaving, but don't know anything at all about nuclear physics. And it's those people need to be able to get along and have conversations and appreciate each other. And you have to look at that scientist and say, well, I don't understand what he says half the time, but he's a nice person. You can still talk to him. And he may look and say, baskets, what are baskets good for? Nobody uses baskets. Weave a basket? That sounds really, really old fashioned. Why would
We
anybody weave a basket? But it's a skill and it's an art form. It's an expression of self. And people
yeah,
who do pottery and who make things, it can be beautiful. It can have meaning and significance. There's all sorts of things. And the scientist needs to be able to appreciate that. And the potter needs to be able to appreciate the work that scientists do.
we tend to not
And
appreciate things outside of our
no, we
of our
don't.
reality.
No, we don't.
And we
As a
need
matter
to
of fact,
start doing that more.
yeah, we don't only not appreciate it, but we tend to discount it. Oh, those physicists all have their head up in the stars. They don't know what they're doing. They're really smart, but they act so dumb. They probably couldn't get their way out of a wet sack if they had to. They're not connected to the real world. And the people look at the potter and say, we're making pottery. They made pottery, like 3,000 years ago. We're past pottery. We don't do that anymore. Go get some Corel or something else. Get some stainless steelware. They think differently, but there's art and value in all of these different things. There's art even in the way physicists come up with theories. It's an art form too. And there's beauty in science, and there's beauty in pottery, and there's beauty in just about everything. And you need to look for it and appreciate it,
Yeah.
and not diss it or downplay it because it's not what you do and it's not the way you are. There's different ways of seeing the world, and when you have these different perspectives, it helps you grow up. If you only have one little narrow perspective, then you're very provincial and you can't really grow up. You just don't understand much. We talked about it's this experience space is what you use to interpret the data that forms your reality. Well, if your experience space is really small because everything's just the way you are, just the way you've been in your little town and your little place and your little people, and that's all you know, well, your experience base is just about that deep. And you have a hard time dealing with the larger world. And you see the larger world as being defective, and your world as being the way it should be. And you see, that's a problem. We need to have diversity. We need to
Everyone
not
has
only have
something to
it,
offer,
and it's not just put up with it and not run away from it and be afraid of it. We need to embrace it. We need to be able to see from that point of view, why is this pottery beautiful? Why is that so interesting? Why is this kind of art different from that kind of art? And what's the value of both of them? And what does it say to me? What does it say to you? And be open to things, then we'll all get along better.
I think that's a
And
very important thing. I do.
so
Absolutely.
when you see people that are different than you are, whether it's a different race or just they went to lived in a different part of the country, you should be looking for value in those differences. Where do
Beautiful.
those differences come from?
Yeah.
Why do those differences exist? There was value somewhere that created those things, those attitudes. Somebody's value, somebody's sensitivity, somebody's creativity created things like that. Some culture created attitudes like that. And where did that come from? And what did it do? And why was it like that? And so you appreciate it. And maybe it doesn't pertain to you so much, but just understanding another person and where they're coming from is a great gift. And it'll open your mind to bigger things and make it easier to understand more people.
Very
So
important.
that's kind of the benefit of diversity, is that we learn from it. It opens our minds, opens possibilities to us that otherwise we'd never think of. So we have to see that as, oh, there's a box in my backyard. What is it? Maybe it's a present. Maybe it's full of dog bones. I should go out and see. But instead, it's like, "Grr, watch out, box. I'm tough and I'm big, and you don't want to mess with me."
It's funny.
It's
Acknowledging somebody else. Find something that you can appreciate. Everybody has something unique. When you find something that you can appreciate about another, it does open up an understanding, and it does open up your reality a lot. I think
it
that's
does.
a
It
beautiful
does.
point.
Yeah, that's why people in years back, people who traveled were had bigger pictures. People who never traveled had little tiny pictures. And it's a huge difference. What do you call that? Sophistication. The travelers were sophisticated in their viewpoints, and the other people were provincial in their viewpoints who never left home. But that is really much bigger than just leaving home and going to foreign lands. It's just different attitudes
Yeah.
that people have. So we have to appreciate and let them be. Oh, they're different from me. That means I'm right and they're wrong, and I need to fix them. Make them see it my way. That's not good. And when you have people like that who are pushy, then that creates problems. So you don't want people overrunning your free will, telling you how to see the world, and then you shouldn't do it to other people and be wanting to overrun their free will and telling them how they should interact in the world. It's just you have
Yeah.
to realize if you do that, if you're upset with other people because they're wrong and they shouldn't be doing that, and you try to fix them, then you realize you're doing the exact same thing they're doing. They think you're wrong and you have to be fixed. You see, and that's not healthy for either of you. Yes, the old solution was the two of you, go outside behind a bar and have a fight, but that's not an intelligent solution. That's a stupid solution, and it doesn't actually solve anything. So instead of having the fight, see what you can see that you can connect to. And you may find people, and you may find there's just 4 or 5 things about them that you can connect to and you can kind of see and are kind of nifty. And maybe there's other stuff that you really don't like. Well, connect to the nifty stuff and ignore the stuff you don't like. You don't have to write them off because they have some stuff you don't like. It's okay if if there's people out there who are goofy and don't believe what you say. It's all right. You can hug them too. You can just deal with them in the spots where it does work and let them go otherwise. So that's the kind of kindness and gentleness and caring of other people that we talk about when you grow up. In your life, you are constantly complaining, you're constantly angry, you're constantly wrapped up in angst and and you just all the time feeling like that. Well, then you're not living your life right. You've got a wrong attitude that's very serious. If your life is one day after another is full of clenched fists and grinding teeth and anger and they shouldn't be, how could those people be so stupid, and you constantly have this grinding of negativity in
Yeah.
your life, that will give you medical problems. 20 years of that, and
Mm.
it'll take 20 years off your lifespan. It's not healthy physically, it's not healthy mentally. If your everyday world is full of anger and angst and stress because other people aren't the way they should be, then you need to change, because not only are you annoying other people with your attitude of knowing everything, but you're grinding yourself physically and mentally into the ground, and it's just
Yeah.
wrong. So look around, look at your feelings. Almost all day long, every day, are you happy and feel satisfied and life is good and smile on your face, then you're doing okay. But if you're complaining and pointing a finger and saying those people, they're not doing it right and we need to get rid of them, and if your life is constantly full of this negativity, then you're setting yourself up for physical, emotional, mental, spiritual problems.
Yeah.
That's
Look
just
for
not
the
healthy.
source of that,
It's not,
right?
yeah, it's not good. You have to look at the source. where is all that anger coming from?
Mm.
And you'll find fear. There's fear at the root of it. And you need to rip that out by the roots, because that fear will poison you. And it's a poison, it's a slow acting poison. It won't poison you, just because you're angry one day. But if that's your life, if your life is full of anger and upset, then it will poison you. And you will get more and more unlikable, and more withdraw into your own little pack, your own little group that sees things your way. And your little group will get more and more violent about how you need to fix and change everybody else, and pretty soon you're off on the edge, a wacko that is disturbing to everyone. So you don't want to go down that path. You don't want to, back up into little groups that are like you and stoke your fear out of your ego and your beliefs and that sort of thing. It'll ruin your life. It'll keep you from evolving, and it'll make you unhappy and give you ulcers and cancer and all kinds of other things, that heart attacks and strokes and all that stuff takes a toll on you physically. Mind leads, the body follows. And when the mind is dysfunctional with anger and fear, the body represents that with illness. So if you're not a happy camper, well, change something. Say, what is it that keeps me from being happy? And look at that and change it. Fix it, because it's not healthy in any way to be that way.
Well, thank you, Tom. That really expanded on the interpreting our reality and gave some good points on what exactly that means and how we can be more cooperative with each other. Thank you very much.
I and MBT Events hope you liked this video. We now have well over 1,000 hours of free video on this YouTube channel. Though these videos are free to our viewers, they represent many thousands of hours in production and editing, and many thousands of dollars invested in video and audio equipment, along with the required computers and software to store and process the raw video into finished products. So far, all of this content has been funded directly out of our own pockets. Be assured, we will always continue to produce free content. It is our life, our purpose, a labor of love that we will continue to pursue as best we can. However, those pockets are not as deep as they used to be. Thus, we are now seeking to augment our resources with support from our viewers. If you find something of significant value in our videos, please consider supporting their production through our Patreon account or through a one-time donation. It would be very much appreciated. The links are in the description below. Thank you.